The letter arrived without warning, changing everything he thought he owned. What began as a quiet inheritance would soon expose a lie an entire HOA was hiding. When Daniel received notice that he had inherited a 1,500-acre lake ranch from his late uncle, he assumed it was a mistake. He had visited the land only once as a child, fishing beside calm water and wide skies. The paperwork confirmed it was real. The land sat beyond a gated residential development managed by a powerful HOA. At first, the board welcomed him politely, offering smiles that felt rehearsed. But within days, something felt wrong. A massive mansion stood near the lake's edge, clearly built with luxury and pride. The HOA president, a confident woman named Karen, claimed the mansion was approved community property. Daniel didn't argue. He simply requested a modern boundary survey. The room went silent. Faces stiffened. Karen laughed nervously and dismissed his request as unnecessary. That reaction told Daniel everything. If the mansion was legal, a survey would prove it. Instead, the HOA delayed, ignored emails, and sent vague warnings about restricted access. Daniel stayed calm. He hired a licensed surveyor anyway. As stakes were placed and drones lifted into the air, whispers spread across the neighborhood. Something buried beneath years of paperwork was about to surface. And when the first boundary line appeared on the map, Daniel realized the mansion was not just misplaced. It was standing entirely on his inherited land. What the HOA had stolen wasn't small. And they had no idea how badly they were exposed. Karen assured the board the survey would prove nothing, but the land didn't lie, and neither did the numbers. The surveyor returned with results that confirmed Daniel's fear and suspicion. The mansion, its driveway, even its private dock, all sat well inside the ranch boundary. Decades earlier, the HOA had quietly expanded without permission, counting on no one ever checking again. Daniel requested a formal meeting. Karen arrived confident, carrying folders filled with selective documents. She spoke loudly about community standards and long-standing use. Daniel said nothing. He slid the official survey across the table. Silence returned, heavier than before. Karen's face tightened. She argued technicalities, claiming grandfathered rights. Daniel calmly explained that the land had never been sold, leased, or transferred. Ownership was continuous and recorded. The board postponed decisions and promised review. Days later, Daniel received a violation notice accusing him of trespassing on HOA property. He smiled. That notice became evidence. His attorney advised patience. Meanwhile, the HOA restricted his access road, placing signs and temporary barriers. Residents watched in confusion as Daniel legally documented every obstruction. The situation escalated quietly but intensely. Karen believed pressure would force Daniel to back down. Instead, he filed a formal complaint with county land enforcement, attaching surveys, titles, and HOA violations. The agency scheduled an inspection. Karen dismissed it publicly, telling neighbors nothing would change. But the inspector arrived early, walking the lake line, measuring foundations, checking permits. He took photos without expression. That night, Karen made dozens of calls. She finally understood this wasn't about negotiation. It was about truth catching up. And truth doesn't respond to authority. It responds to evidence. The inspection report landed like a quiet earthquake. Everything the HOA relied on began to collapse. County findings confirmed unauthorized construction, improper land use, and falsified boundary assumptions. The mansion violated zoning, environmental, and ownership regulations simultaneously. Enforcement issued immediate notices. Karen attempted damage control, telling residents the issue was temporary. But legal letters arrived at homes, explaining the neighborhood sat partly on protected land. Property values trembled. Panic followed. Daniel remained silent publicly. He had no reason to celebrate yet. The HOA demanded emergency assessments from residents to fund legal defense. Meetings grew tense. Neighbors questioned how leadership allowed this risk. Karen blamed previous boards, missing records, even Daniel himself. None of it mattered. The law didn't care about excuses. The mansion was ordered vacated pending resolution. Utility services were restricted. The private dock was closed. Security guards were removed. For the first time, the lake looked peaceful again. Daniel visited at sunrise, standing where fences once blocked him. He felt sadness more than victory. This land wasn't meant for conflict. But theft had forced his hand. Karen filed injunctions that failed. Her authority faded as quickly as it had grown. Residents demanded resignations. Investigators expanded their scope, uncovering similar encroachments. The HOA's legal counsel quietly withdrew. Without protection, the board fractured. Daniel's attorney prepared the final claim. Either the HOA would purchase the occupied land at market value, or the structures would be removed. Karen knew the truth. They couldn't afford either. Years of deception had finally reached their price. And someone had to pay it. The vote that followed wasn't about land anymore, it was about survival. At the emergency assembly, residents packed the hall. Faces once confident now showed fear and anger. Karen tried to speak but was interrupted repeatedly. Financial disclosures were demanded. Records revealed hidden funds used to rush mansion approvals. Trust evaporated. A motion was passed to remove her immediately. The board dissolved within minutes. County officials presented options bluntly. The land had to be restored or legally transferred. Daniel stood and addressed the room calmly. He offered a solution. The HOA could relinquish control of the disputed area, restore the environment, and allow access easements through his ranch. In return, he would not pursue damages against individual homeowners. Only against those responsible. The room exhaled. Karen was absent. Her name appeared only in filings now. The vote passed unanimously. Restoration plans began. Concrete was removed. Shorelines reopened. The mansion sat empty, its future uncertain. Daniel didn't want it demolished. He wanted accountability. Legal proceedings continued quietly. Karen faced personal liability. Fines mounted. Licenses were reviewed. The community began rebuilding trust, learning how easily power corrupts when unchecked. Daniel returned to managing the ranch, restoring trails and wildlife zones. The land healed slowly, but it healed. The lake reflected open sky again. What began as inheritance became a lesson written into property law records. No matter how long something is taken, ownership never disappears. It only waits to be proven. Months later, silence replaced tension, but the final chapter had yet to close. The court ruled the mansion permanently illegal on its location. Removal was ordered. Karen's appeals failed. She disappeared from public life, her authority erased by documents she once ignored. Heavy equipment arrived not with chaos, but precision. Piece by piece, the structure was dismantled. Daniel watched from a distance, not out of pride, but closure. The HOA restructured under oversight, transparent and cautious. Residents thanked him quietly, understanding his restraint saved them from ruin. The lake returned to public view, reflecting change instead of greed. Daniel placed a simple marker near the shoreline honoring his uncle, who had preserved the land without knowing what it would one day face. The story spread online, framed as a shocking twist. But Daniel knew the truth was simpler. Power had tried to rewrite boundaries. Paper brought them back. And that lesson would outlive the mansion itself. People asked Daniel if it was worth the stress. He always gave the same answer. He said the land was never just dirt and water. It was trust passed down, responsibility inherited. Letting it go would have meant accepting that authority overrides truth. And that never ends well. The county cited the case as precedent. Developers took notice. HOAs revised policies nationwide. Quietly, something changed. One man-standing firm forced an entire system to remember its limits. Daniel didn't become famous. He became free. And the ranch remained exactly what it was meant to be. The mansion is gone, the land remains, and that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you love the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.